Namaste students, welcome to online learning. Today's learning is from Flamingo, Chapter 3, Deep Water by William Douglas. William Douglas was born in the year 1898 and died in the year 1980. His full name is William O. Douglas. He was born in Maine, Minnesota. He did his graduation in English, economics, and law. He was an advisor to President Franklin Roosevelt, and is acclaimed to be the longest served judge, nearly for 36 years. This lesson, Deep Water, is an excerpt from his autobiography of Men and Mountains. You very well know, students, biography is writing the experience of others. Writing the experience of self is autobiography. So we are reading the autobiography of William O. Douglas. A man is a bundle of emotions, and one such emotion is fear. Fear, in its extreme form, is called as phobia. The affected suffers mentally as well physically. There are many phobias, students. A few have been listed out, and you can learn them at ease and improve your vocabulary. The phobia that is focused in this lesson we are learning is aquaphobia. Could you refer the list and tell me what fear is it about? Yeah, exactly. It is fear of water. Students, I have attached the necessary pages along with the pics for better understanding. This passage actually comes in the second page of your lesson, and it happens to be the flashback of William Douglas. So now, as we know, William Douglas is suffering from this aquaphobia, fear of water. And for any problem to be solved, the root cause should be analyzed. Don't you agree with me? Yes. So Douglas, the author, had fear towards water, and let us see the root cause. Where did it actually begin? So this paragraph says, it all began when he was 3 or 4 years old. So English is all about visualizing and experiencing in the shoes of the narrator, children. You have to visualize 3 or 4 years old William Douglas. It was all because of the terrific experience that he had in Californian beach. He and his father stood in the surf, and the waves swept over him, and he was buried in water. Though it happens with everyone who stands in wave, he felt the experience terrific, and hence he developed an aversion towards water. Now you have to see the word surf, children. Surf, you can verify the picture. It is the foamy rising wave. Surf is the foamy rising wave. You know, we all enjoy standing in the beach, wetting our feet. No? It's a very joyous experience, but unfortunately it happened to be a terrific experience for William O. Douglas. And another word is there, aversion. He had an aversion to water. Aversion means he developed hatred towards water, dislike towards water. Now we are in the first page of the lesson. Another reason why he disliked water is also his mother's words. His mother had fueled his fear by mentioning that Yakima River was treacherous and that many had drowned in the river. I've highlighted the words, children, the area that you have to focus on in the paragraph. And this word treacherous means deceptive and dangerous. It may appear to be very safe, but really not. So his mother's words also had fueled his fear. Yet he had the will to be free from fear, so he went to YMCA pool in California to learn to swim. And what was his age then? He was about 10 or 11 years old. And what does he take along with him? He takes a pair of water wings. What are water wings, children? They are the safety props for swimming. They are like the inflated rubber rings that we use, but these inflated rubber rings are worn in the shoulder. You can see in the picture with the arrow mark. So that particular property is called as water wings. This swimming pool was safe. He felt so. You know why he felt so? Because this swimming pool had two edges. Any swimming pool, for that sake, will have two edges. One edge was the shallow end. Shallow end was only 2 or 3 feet deep. Okay, and the other end was called the deep end, and this was 9 feet deep. And the drop also was very gradual. So the initial swimmers can be in the shallow edge, which is only 2 or 3 feet deep. You can just imagine, students, a man, normal man, is generally 6 feet tall. You can see how tall you are for your age, and you can compare how tall Douglas would have been at the age of 11 or 10. So he felt that shallow end was the safe zone for him. Never ever he thought of going to the deep end. And what is the deep end meant for? It was meant for the swimmers who had gained confidence. Okay, they had to test their ability in the deep water. So the other end was 9 feet deep. The mishap that happened here was the ultimate reason. It was the ultimate for building the fear towards water. One day, there was nobody in pool, so Douglas sat waiting. A big boy arrived, and this big boy, perhaps for fun, lifted him and threw him in the deep end of the swimming pool. Perhaps you would have thought that he knows swimming, but unfortunately our poor Douglas does not know swimming. So it was here in this swimming pool he had a struggle between life and death, and this becomes the turning point in Douglas's life. This is a very important slide, students, and it provides an answer for the questions recurrently asked by CBSE. And you can see the heading also. It's Douglas's struggle in water. The author has given so much of importance that Page number 26 and 27, both the pages talk about his struggle inside the water, how he went deep inside, what was his mental trauma, what planning did he do, what are the strategies that he adopted to come up, and all such things are given in detail. I have outlined it in 4 paragraphs. Let's see. Douglas was inside the water. It was an unexpected throw. Even then, he did not lose his wits, because he planned to make a big jump after hitting the floor, come up like a cork, lie flat on the surface, and move to the shallow end. So this is his plan. But unfortunately, he could not move up. In reality, the action was performed very slow. He tried to shout, but he could not. Then he went down for the second time. Again he tried to jump. He couldn't, because all his energy was exhausted. Terror held him strongly. He says that 9 feet depth appeared to be 90 feet depth. His third attempt to come up was also a failure, because he sucked in lot of water. And at last, he ceased all efforts and fell unconscious. And now, children, this is the pictorial representation of the consequences of his fear. This also happens to be the answer for the question, what is the consequence of Douglas's fear? This is also a repetitively asked question. So, how was he affected? His fear made his legs frozen or paralyzed. This is the physical effect on him. Okay? Fear affects him physically and mentally. So his fear made his legs frozen or paralyzed. He couldn't move at the sight of water. And moreover, as a result, he couldn't have the joy of fishing, canoeing, boating, and swimming. So these are the consequences of his fear. A very important slide, children. This is the main part of the lesson. He wanted to overcome the fear. He wanted to enjoy life to the fullest. So what did Douglas do? He hired an instructor. Again, the pictorial representation of his swimming techniques in stages, 3 stages. For 3 months, the instructor used a pulley, held him high on a rope attached to his belt. He swam back and forth. The first picture highlights this, children, and I have also used an highlighter to gain your attention towards these areas in the passage. Then what did the instructor do? He taught him the breathing techniques. He taught Douglas to put his face under water and exhale, and raise his head up and inhale. So these are the techniques that he has to adopt when he is inside the water. Then for many weeks he taught Douglas to kick his heels. You can see in the third picture, students. Kick his heels so that his legs become strengthened. And after 7 months, from October to April, the instructor had trained him devotedly and declared he was all ready to swim. But our hero Douglas wanted to test his ability in various water bodies to ensure that he was 100% fear free. Yet another slide that has answer for repeatedly asked question. How did he shed his residuals of fear? Or how did Douglas gain confidence that he was 100% fear free? So what did Douglas do? He swam well in Lake Wentworth. You can see the picture, a very vast water body. Even without the assistance of instructor or the help of his friends, he was able to swim across such a vast water body. He also mastered many strokes like crawl, breaststroke, slide stroke, and backstroke. His courage is explicited when he addresses fear. You can see in the thing, children. He laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" So you can see he is challenging fear. He has gained so much of confidence that he is now ready to challenge fear. And he swam on. Yet he thought there was miniature of a fear inside. So he also wanted to shed off that 0.1% fear. So he went up to the Titan, to Conrad Meadows and Conrad Creek Trail to meet Glacier. So these are all the water bodies that he chose to test himself. As the proverb goes, students, practice makes a person perfect. So he put himself into practice till he gained assurance that he was fear free. Now, not once he was afraid. And finally, he shouted in joy, and the Gilbert Peak echoed it. He says, not everyone can appreciate his achievement. You may ask, what's there? It's only a normal thing, learning swimming and practicing in different water bodies. It's not like that. Only the one who had a similar experience, only the one who had been in such a life and death struggle can truly appreciate Douglas. So this is what has happened. This is not only in swimming. This is one such phobia, I said, students. You can compare it with your own life. You may have fear towards certain things. And what are the steps you take to overcome that fear? And when you overcome that fear, the joy that occupies your heart, it is no words to explain that joy. So similar joy was there with Douglas. He says ultimately what we have to fear is nothing but the fear itself. The theme of the lesson here, it is a real life personal account of experiencing fear, analyzing it psychologically, and taking measures to conquer it. This also sometimes appear as a 2 marks question where you have to add your own points also, children. This is the main point. And having come to the end of the lesson, let's have a recap. So the first one is about the author. Should be able to say when he was born, when did he die, and significant points about the author. And moreover, this lesson is an autobiography and it is an excerpt then what did we see? We saw about the Douglas's fear factor. So what does he fear? He fears water in any form. The root cause of fear, should talk about the Californian beach experience, his mother's words, and the YMCA pool mishap. Mishap at YMCA pool, you should be able to recollect elaborately and extensively how the big boy threw him in the deep end, and the strategies that he had planned to implement to save himself, the efforts that he put in, and the failure that he faced. All this has to go in the mishap at YMCA pool. The next one is the consequence of his fear. We should talk about how he was physically and mentally affected because of the fear. Physically, his legs were paralyzed, and he could not have the joy of fishing, canoeing, boating, and swimming. The next one is efforts to overcome fear. This is the instructor's area. For about 7 months, he swam under the instruction of the instructor, the guidance of the instructor. The instructor taught him the techniques like swimming with a cable wire attached with the overhead pulley, and it was attached to his belt. He was on the other end. Simultaneously, both of them swam across the pool. So that was one. And the second one was the breathing techniques that he had to adopt when he was inside the water. That is, inhaling while he was outside and exhaling when he was inside. And the last one, the kicking techniques and several strokes also, to make himself a master swimmer. That's a very important area of the lesson also. The last one is his victory over fear. This is the area where he tried his ability in various water bodies and ensured himself that he had no fear at all at the sight of water. So this is all in this lesson. I want you to read the entire lesson word by word to gain more knowledge. Thank you, students.